King Frederick X and Queen Mary of Denmark host a state visit in Copenhagen. King Felipe VI of Spain opens a conference in northern Spain. And Hereditary Grand Duke Guillaume of Luxembourg takes the oath of Lieutenant Representative in Luxembourg City. All this and much more coming up next on your Royal Daily News. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are having a wonderful day today. My name is Alexandra, and welcome to your Royal Daily News for Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. In Luxembourg City, His Royal Highness, Hereditary Grand Duke Guillaume of Luxembourg, took the oath of Lieutenant Representative of the Grand Duke during a ceremony at the Chamber of Deputies this afternoon. On June 23, 2024, His Royal Highness, Grand Duke Henri of Luxembourg, announced that his eldest son and heir to the Grand Ducal throne, Hereditary Grand Duke Guillaume of Luxembourg, would take on the role of Lieutenant Representative of the Grand Duke. According to Chapter 3, Section 2, Article 58 of the Constitution of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, it states, quote, "The Grand Duke may be represented by a person who meets the conditions of Article 56, Paragraph 1, and who bears the title of Lieutenant Representative of the Grand Duke. The Lieutenant Representative of the Grand Duke only takes office after having taken the following oath before the Chamber of Deputies." End quote. The role of Lieutenant Representative of the Grand Duke will allow Hereditary Grand Duke Guillaume to take on more responsibilities representing the Grand Duke. The Cour Grand Ducal notes that the Grand Duke is, quote, "free to attach limitations to the mandate that he deems necessary. The powers of the Lieutenant Representative are delimited by this mandate, and the provisions that he makes under his mission have the same effect as if they came from the Grand Duke himself." End quote. It is important to note that Grand Duke Henri is not abdicating. He is still the head of state. However, traditionally, when the heir is named Lieutenant Representative, several years go by when the head of state eventually abdicates. In the history of the Grand Duchy, there have been 5 lieutenant representatives. The first dates back to February 5, 1850, when King William III of the Netherlands, who was also the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, appointed his brother, Prince Henry of the Netherlands, as lieutenant representative. Prince Henry took on the oath on October 24, 1850. The second, Hereditary Grand Duke Guillaume of Nassau, the son of Grand Duke Adolf, who took the oath as lieutenant representative in April 1902. He acceded to the throne on November 17, 1905, after the death of his father. On March 19, 1908, Grand Duchess Maria Anna was appointed lieutenant representative by Grand Duke Guillaume IV. On April 28, 1961, Her Royal Highness Grand Duchess Charlotte of Luxembourg appointed her eldest son and heir, His Royal Highness Hereditary Grand Duke Jean of Luxembourg, as lieutenant representative. He took the oath on May 4, 1961. On November 12, 1964, Grand Duchess Charlotte abdicated in favor of her son. On March 4, 1998, His Royal Highness Grand Duke Jean of Luxembourg appointed his heir, Hereditary Grand Duke Henri of Luxembourg, as lieutenant representative. On October 7, 2000, Grand Duke Jean of Luxembourg abdicated in favor of his son. Today's ceremony began at the Palais Grand Ducal with His Royal Highness Grand Duke Henri of Luxembourg and the Prime Minister of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, Mr. Luc Frieden, signing the Grand Ducal Decree of Appointment. The Grand Ducal Decree of Appointment specifies the powers that the Grand Duke delegates to the Lieutenant Representative. After a speech from the Prime Minister, the Hereditary Grand Duke gave a speech, stating, quote, "The lieutenancy that begins today is a double proof of confidence. The confidence of a father in his son, but also the confidence of a head of state in his successor. I am very proud to be able to do even more alongside our head of state, and I promise him to give the best of myself to fulfill my new responsibilities." End quote. At 3:30 p.m., the Hereditary Grand Duke and Prime Minister Frieden arrived at the Chamber of Deputies for the taking of the oath ceremony. This is the first time that the taking of the oath ceremony has taken place in the Chamber of Deputies, due to the change in the Constitution of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg in 2003. During the ceremony, the President of the Chamber of Deputies, Mr. Claude Weisler, gave a speech in front of members of the government, noting that, quote, "Today is a day that marks a pivotal moment in the history of Luxembourg. It is an important day, not only for you personally, but also for the Luxembourg people and all its residents. 26 years after your father, it is your turn to take on the role of Lieutenant Representative." End quote. Then, the hereditary Grand Duke stood up as President Weisler read the Grand Ducal Decree of Appointment. Moments later, the hereditary Grand Duke took the oath, stating, quote, "I swear to observe the Constitution and the laws and to faithfully fulfill my constitutional duties." End quote. After taking the oath, the hereditary Grand Duke gave a speech, stating, quote, "The Grand Duke has decided to entrust me with a new responsibility by appointing me Lieutenant Representative today. I am deeply grateful to him, as well as to you, elected parliamentarians of the country, to the Luxembourg government, and for the trust you have placed in me. The oath I have just taken as Lieutenant Representative commits me not only to respect, but also to defend at all times the fundamental values enshrined in our Constitution. It is before you that I make this solemn commitment with gratitude. I am aware that today also marks a new stage in my personal life for my wife and our children. We are approaching it together and with confidence. I am delighted to now stand alongside the Grand Duke as Lieutenant Representative in the service of this country and its people, and to work in the best interests of Luxembourg." End quote. After a round of applause, posing for photos, and signing the Chamber of Deputies book, the hereditary Grand Duke, the Prime Minister, and the President took a short walk back to the Palais Grand Ducal. The historic day ended with a reception at the Palais Grand Ducal. In Oudenaarde, Her Majesty, Queen Mathilde of the Belgians, arrived at the MOU Museum to view the exhibition entitled Margaret, the Emperor's Daughter Between Power and Image. According to a press release from the MOU Museum, the exhibition is, quote, "dedicated to Margaret of Parma, born in Oudenaarde, and the first, but illegitimate child of Emperor Charles V and the maid Joanna." As the Emperor's eldest daughter, Margaret would help determine the course of history in the turbulent 16th century Europe. She was also a society figure in Italy. Moreover, she was a true art lover and patron. It is high time this fascinating figure was given her proper place in history. The exhibition showcases portraits and splendid objects that Margaret cherished or commissioned to be displayed for the first time in 500 years. End quote. Meanwhile, His Majesty, King Philippe of the Belgians, held an audience with the President of the Republic of Finland, Alexander Stubb, at the Palais Royal de Bruxelles. In the afternoon, the King presided over the presentation of the 2024 Franqui Prize in Exact Sciences held at the Palais des Académies. In Vitoria, His Majesty, King Felipe VI of Spain, presided over the opening ceremony of the second edition of the United Nations International Conference on Victims of Terrorism, held at Palacio de Congresos e Europa. Held under the theme, Education as an Instrument for Prevention, Peace Building, and Empowerment of Victims of Terrorism, the purpose of the conference is to show solidarity with all the victims of terrorism around the world, regardless of religion, nationality, or ethnicity. In Oslo, Their Royal Highnesses, Crown Prince Haakon and Crown Princess Mette-Marit of Norway visited the Nick Walls Institute on the occasion of World Mental Health Day 2024. Meanwhile, Their Majesties, King Harald V and Queen Sonja of Norway, hosted a luncheon at the Royal Palace for members of the Diplomatic Corps. On Monday, in Stockholm, His Majesty, King Carl Gustaf of Sweden, held a farewell audience with the Ambassador of Japan to the Kingdom of Sweden, Masaki Noki, at the Royal Palace. Their Majesties, King Frederick X and Queen Mary of Denmark, welcomed the President of the Republic of Iceland, Halla Tomasdottir, and her husband to Copenhagen this morning. The presidential couple and their delegation are on a 2-day state visit to the Kingdom of Denmark at the invitation of Their Majesties. This is the first incoming state visit since the King's accession to the throne on January 14, 2024. According to the Royal Court of Denmark, the state visit will focus on the, quote, strengthening of Danish-Icelandic cooperation and on the shared ambitions on the broad sustainability agenda. In addition, there will be a joint focus on technological solutions in connection with digital and green transformation. End quote. The visit began with Their Majesties warmly welcoming the presidential couple at the North Custom House in Copenhagen. Thereafter, Their Majesties and the presidential couple traveled by carriage to the Citadel, escorted by the Guard Hussar Regiment's mounted squadron. While at the Citadel, they presided over a solemn wreath-laying ceremony at the monument. In the mid-morning, Their Majesties and the presidential couple arrived at Christian VII's palace at Amalienborg to attend an official welcoming reception. This was followed by a visit to the Jonshus Icelandic Cultural Center in Copenhagen, where Their Majesties and the presidential couple met with representatives from various Icelandic women's organizations. While at the center, they also viewed the exhibition entitled Jon Sigurdsson's Home and signed the guest book. After a lovely luncheon at the Jonshus Icelandic Cultural Center, Their Majesties and the presidential couple visited Danish Parliament, where they met with the Speaker, Mr. Soren Gade, and select members of Parliament. In the late afternoon, they visited the Artna McNian collection at the University of Copenhagen. According to the Royal Court of Denmark, the Artna McNian collection is a, quote, collection of manuscripts that can be dated back to the Middle Ages. Today, the manuscripts are used to conduct research in, among other things, textual and linguistic studies within older Nordic languages. End quote. In the evening, Their Majesties hosted a lavish gala state banquet at Christiansborg Slot in honor of the presidential couple's visit to the Kingdom of Denmark. Guests attending the gala dinner included Her Royal Highness, Princess Benedikte of Denmark, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Denmark, Ms. Mette Frederiksen, the Speaker of Danish Parliament, Mr. Soren Gade, members of the government, representatives from the Danish and Icelandic business sectors, representatives from culture and sport, the Icelandic delegation, members of Their Majesty's Court, members of Princess Benedikte's Court, and distinguished guests. In Thimphu, His Majesty, King Jimne Kheser Wangchuck of Bhutan, presided over the blessing of the Dasai Tika this morning. According to the Royal Court of Bhutan, quote, the Dasai Tika will be sent to the districts across Bhutan for people celebrating the festival. Dasai is the most important festival celebrated by the Hindu community in Bhutan. End quote. In Tokyo, the Imperial Household Agency announced that Her Imperial Majesty, Empress Emerita Michiko of Japan, successfully underwent surgery at the University of Tokyo Hospital early this morning. The IHA also confirmed that she is expected to remain in the hospital for some time for rehabilitation. Her doctors will determine when she will be discharged based on her progress. On Sunday, the 89-year-old Empress Emerita, quote, fell on a flat surface and did not hit her head, end quote, at the Sento Imperial Palace on the Akasaka Imperial Estate. Immediately after the fall, she felt severe pain in the upper part of her right leg. Following an examination at the University of Tokyo Hospital, it was revealed that she had broken the upper part of her right femur. On Monday, Her Imperial Highness, Princess Kako of Akishino, as honorary president of the Japan Tennis Association, attended the 99th edition of the All Japan Tennis Championships held at the Ariake Coliseum. And finally, in Saudi Arabia, His Majesty King Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud of Saudi Arabia, the custodian of the two holy mosques, was admitted into the hospital on Sunday. In a press release from the royal court, it noted that the king, quote, based on recommendations from the royal clinics, is undergoing medical tests on Sunday, October 6th, 2024, due to lung inflammation, end quote. And there you have it. Thank you all so much for joining me this afternoon. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. I will be back tomorrow on Wednesday, October 9th, with all the latest royal news and events. Until then, I sincerely wish each and every one of you, your family, your friends, and your pets a wonderful afternoon. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Comment below if you'd like, and click on the notification bell so you won't miss a new episode. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone, and I will see you all tomorrow. Take care.